Welcome to MarTech Advisor's Executive Interview Series. I'm Ginger Conlon, a contributing editor to MarTech Advisor. And joining us today is Venkat Nagaswamy, who is CEO of MarianaIQ. And Venkat and I are going to talk about the skills that marketers need to succeed in marketing today. And he's got a great perspective. As a CEO, he hires marketers, but he also works with a company and runs the company that works very closely with marketers. So welcome, Venkat. Thanks for being here today.
Glad to be here.
So before we dive in, I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey to becoming CEO of MarianaIQ.
Yep. So before starting this company, I used to run enterprise marketing for Juniper Networks, which meant that I was head of lead gen, demand gen, solutions marketing for enterprise business for Juniper Networks, which is a $1.8 billion business. And as I always say, that's where that gave me the background, or I worn the shoe of a marketer. And if you're developing tools right now for marketers, it's with the experience of being a marketer myself and having led teams, marketing teams. And prior to Juniper, I used to be at McKinsey. I was a consultant serving high-tech clients, for the most part in sales and marketing, but in other strategy matters as well. Prior to that, I started another company. I used to sell plastics back in the day in the automotive industry for GE in Detroit. And by background, I'm an engineer. I went to IIT Madras in India, and I was doing a PhD in what we would today call as high performance computing at Georgia Tech. When I bailed out of the master's, when I realized that research was not for me, and I also did a business degree. So in terms of my background, I've been a salesperson, I've been a consultant, and I've been a marketer, and by background, I'm an engineer. So when I got brought into the marketing team at Juniper, it was I came in with a slightly different background than your typical marketer. And having been a marketer, now we're developing tools that would help marketers.
That's such a great background for a broad perspective on what it takes to succeed in marketing today.
Yeah, I hope so.
So first question, hiring marketers has been a part of your role. You were a marketer. What do you see as the key either skill or trait that you need to succeed in marketing today, specifically as a marketing leader?
Absolutely. So, I mean, for this, I have to, again, go back to my own experience in terms of when I got brought into marketing. My boss, then boss, Lauren Flaherty, who was the CMO of Juniper, she's now the CMO of CA. She brought me into marketing to bring more of a structured process into marketing. This was about 6 years ago, much before most people were thinking about analytics and being far more rigorous, at least in the B2B world, when it comes to marketing. She saw that that we need to bring in more of analysis and analytics into the picture, even though she has a more traditional marketer's background. She saw the need for bringing more of these things in. So anything I say now is based on the vision that she saw. So I got to give her most of the credit. So in terms of hiring marketers, one of the big things that's happened in the past 10 years is, as everybody knows, the profession has become more and more analytical and more technology heavy, right? And with it becoming more and more technology heavy, there are a whole bunch of pitfalls that we could fall into that we need to be careful about. So in terms of the skills that we look for when it comes to marketing, it's and in fact, one of the first hires that we did was a marketing person. She comes in with a communications background from NYU, but we're adding more and more of analysis and coding skills to her to develop a modern marketer. So a modern marketer has an ability to understand numbers, delve into numbers, understand what they mean within the context of the strategy that they're establishing, and of course, still having the creativity and the energy and passion that a normal marketer has. And one thing I should note on the side is that with the rise of AI, one hopes that a lot of routine numerical things that people are doing now with respect to data, hopefully those things would go away and marketers can come back to focusing on creativity and so on and so forth. But for the most part, today you need this combination of left brain and right brain, even though I personally don't like that analogy of left brain and right brain. But anyway.
So if you are, say, mid-level in your career in marketing and you need to get a better analytics background and what have you, so you can take a leadership position, what are some steps that you can take to achieve that? Spend more time with the data analysts, take some classes, get out there in the market, get a mentor. What advice do you have?
Yeah, so I would say, so there are two or three things. Tools have gotten much better today than what they were 6 years ago, let's say. So now, so 6 years ago, if somebody had asked me this question, I would have said, first step, go learn Python to go get the data from the source and do the analysis yourself. However, in the past 6 years or so, with the rise of tools like Looker, Periscope, Domo, and Tableau, and so on and so forth, ability to use these tools to bring things together has become more important. Of course, learning Python and knowing Python is an important thing, but I would say that's the second step. The first step I would say is that is to learn tools like Looker and Periscope and all these things. Because one of the key things in terms of understanding analytics is being able to get data from multiple sources, keeping it in one place to try and draw lessons in terms of what are the customers looking for, what is the journey that's going to appeal to them the most. The questions have remained the same. It's a question of pulling the data and figuring out the answers that's changed. And so in terms of first step, it's being able to get all these data from different sources and then integrate it in one place to analyze, right? So that's number one. And allied with that is understanding Google Analytics, which is right now mainstay of a lot of websites, Google Analytics or similar things like Adobe and Sitecore and so on and so forth. Secondly, I would also add other tools like Marketo, Pardot, those two things, website analytics and marketing automation analytics. Knowing those tools is super important. And a new breed of tools that have come up now are people like us who are more in the ABM space. That will become more and more critical as the time goes by. But right now, I'd say focus on Looker, focus on tools like site analytics and marketing analytics. And once you master those, then you can start messing around with Python to get further detail than what these tools can help you get to today.
Excellent, thank you. So, like you said, there's so much data, and there are all these new marketing technologies, and it's changing the marketing landscape. And along with skills like having a better understanding of analytics, is there anything else any new skills that you're seeing coming up that marketers should be thinking about?
So, of course, a couple of things that we see lesser of in B2B marketing than that we see more in B2C is more understanding about social and specifically around paid social as a tool. I mean, if you look at the percentage of dollars that whole of marketers in B2B spend on digital as a whole, it's much smaller, even as a percentage, than what B2C spend. And even in B2B spend on digital, most of it is spent on Google AdWords and banner ads. One of the things that we believe is an important channel is paid social, and how do we become deeper and deeper into that? So that's something that we don't see as much as in B2B that we see in B2C. But so that's one thing that is quasi new, I would say, that people need to look at. And the other thing that I would want to emphasize is not a new skill. I mean, we human beings have known about it for 4,000 years. It's just being able to write, right? I mean, one of the biggest constraints that we have today is in finding someone who can understand the numbers and understand the math, but can still describe it and write an article or a blog or what have you that brings it to life for people who might not be as numerically inclined, right? So, and at the end of the day, it comes back to basics, I guess, the reading, writing, arithmetic, but those are not new skills. But those are things that I would emphasize. Writing is something that I would highly emphasize when it comes to our neck of the woods, if you will.
Right. How about traits? So, skills are learned, but there's traits that I think as a marketer you're maybe more inclined to succeed than others. So what are you seeing? What do you look for also when you hire? Any specific traits along with, I mean, you mentioned creativity, but anything else?
So with marketing, especially in B2B marketing, with the tools being as, shall we say, as separate as they are, as siloed as they are, bringing all data together is important, so on and so forth, like what we're talking about. Along with that is just persistence, right? The tools, even ours included, don't perform the way they're supposed to. And having a lateral thinking in terms of being able to figure out how to properly leverage the tool. It's not a question of using the tool. It's more a question of persistence and grit and having lateral thinking. These are skills again that educators have been talking about for a long time. But those are the kinds of things that are more important today in marketing, because it's not as if, and unlike, let's say, I'm going to pick some example, unlike, let's say, tracking your expenses using Mint, which is relatively easy, in marketing tools, the tools are not that, haven't come to the place where it performs the way you need it to, and which requires the user, and sad to say this as a guy who's developing tools, but it takes the user to think in terms of how the developer might be thinking, though it should be the other way. But nevertheless, those are some of the skills that people need to be able to leverage the tools appropriately and to make sure that stuff works the way we want it to. So it's perseverance, grit, and lateral thinking and things of that kind that we need in terms of your uh, inherent qualities than the specific skill sets.
Right. So, along with the creativity and speaking data, so to speak, and this kind of lateral creative thinking, anything that you see that over the long term will just continue to be an essential marketing skill or trait? It's something that's, always been important, like writing, but will continue on no matter how many other crazy changes there are.
Yep. So the way we break up any process is into three buckets, right? So it's sense, decide, and act. And this, by the way, is what people use to talk about automation and robotic process automation and so on and so forth. So this framework, or SID, sense, interpret, decide, and act, frameworks have been around for quite some time. But when you think about it in this way, and let's fast forward to a future where the existing types of AI tools have reached their maturity, let's say in 5-10 years time. So the ability to gather data and understand people is far better. So even in that world, what I would see is that there would still be a certain amount of restrictions in how AI can draw lessons out of this. But when it comes to deciding and acting, or at least in terms of being able to create the assets and so on, the creativity and ability to tell a story still remains, right? And with my wife being a writer, I have a vested interest in hoping that AI will not take over or take over, telling stories and having more imaginative writing. Basic kinds of writing have already been automated, but that kind of telling a story that grabs the people, that I think is going to remain a human endeavor, at least for another 5 to 10 years. But there's nothing, by the way, maybe over time that will get automated as well, but at least so far as I know today. So that kind of creative skills is still going to remain. Ability to tell a story will still going to remain, but you can tell a story that grabs the people only if you understand people, only if you understand who they are, who the people you're trying to appeal to, what do they want, what is the journey that they themselves are going to, so that you can tie what you're doing to that, right? So this understanding people and telling a story, understanding people, while a lot of this will be done by AI, but AI is going to augment human being in being able to understand them, and then of course using that to tell a story. Those are the two pieces of puzzle that we believe is always going to, certain element of it is always going to remain human, and we need to keep looking at it as the time goes by.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Venkat, thank you so much for all the great insight today. And I want to thank everyone who's joined us watching the video. And also, Venkat and I had a great conversation about account-based marketing in another video, so I hope you'll check that out as well. So thanks again for being here today.
Thanks all.